was its own challenge. When I first started in communication with her, she has a website, but there's not really a contact me link. And it took a while. I did not realize that I was commissioning her first piece for solo piano. Barbara York, at the moment, is probably known most as a composer of music for brass, winds, or some combination of thereof, and piano. There were two pieces that I was the pianist on that kind of led me to want to work with her on this commission. The first is a piece called How Beautiful. And if you're a tubist or a pianist, I encourage you to just, I can barely talk about this piece without crying, let alone when I play it. It's just a very, very heartfelt piece. It's dedicated to Michael, who was with us briefly on And Then the Day that this young boy was born and died. So, and she wrote it for the parents. And there's a piece also that was commissioned by the International Women's Trombone Association called The Caged Bird, which pays homage to both Maya Angelou and others who have written about, that sense of being caged and still singing. What Barbara York's take on it is that how can we help but sing, no matter what our situation at the moment? And so Barbara and I have been in conversation for over a year now. At one point, she wanted to make sure that I knew that she was not going to write me a virtuosic piece. And I told her that that wasn't what I wanted, that I wanted a piece that would be meaningful. I actually said, she didn't believe me when I told her what my span was, so I sent her a picture of my hand at the piano. I'm going to play the first 3 of 4 movements of this suite before I actually talk about it, because I want you to experience it without preconceptions of what might be inherent when we talked about the piece. So this is the first 3 movements of Seeking Refuge. I'm not even going to tell you the titles. There's a fourth movement that I'm not playing.
Because of the third, in the end of the third, I saw features of the first, features of the second, and features of the third.
So there's a fourth. The world premiere of this piece is on April 11th, and so I've chosen not to play the entire work.
Also, thematically, the second and the third started the same way, but one was in minor, one was in major.
Right. So the piece is called Seeking Refuge. And some of you know who've been to others of my past conference presentations know that one of my research streams for about the past 5 years has been solo piano music that can heighten our awareness of human rights issues. And so that's part of my selection with Barbara York, that for one, from how beautiful she feels, at least to me, very, very deeply. And from The Caged Bird, there is this impression that I got, not just from what she writes, but from the piece itself, that she really believes in wanting the best for everyone in humanity. And so as we started talking, what I have done in the past is I actually have a database of every piece that I could possibly find that is a solo piano work that is at all for social justice or human rights. And I decided that my next step was to commission something. And so I chose Barbara. We settled on a price, and she was very generous since I was using my own money, that it was less than she might charge otherwise. And the Seeking Refuge, it is literally about what is happening at the southern border as we speak. And so to give you a little more, in a way, context after the fact, perhaps. So the first movement is entitled Flight. And I think you can hear that in kind of the unquiet and the restless quality and the juxtaposition of triplets and duple meter. The second is Journey. And one of the things that's been was frustrating as I started learning the pieces when to me, that beautiful melody I want it to just be expansive and beautiful, but the time isn't there yet in the piece for it to be expansive and beautiful. So in the second movement, which is called Journey, we get, in a way, two of the main motives from the first movement in minor, and very much, presented kind of as, oh my gosh, we're still going, and it's very heavy, and will we get to that point of refuge? And the third movement is actually in 3 parts, and she calls it hope, and then that disquiet in the middle is worry, and then the return is actually at that point of prayer. Will this turn out? And then the last movement actually is despair and separation. And she and I have actually talked about this. We are hopeful that possibly at some point, when hopefully both of us are still alive, there can be a 5th movement that would possibly be more than hope. That could be, we have come to a reconciliation. How many of us are migrants or come from migrant families? So it actually should be every single person in this room. And I say that for myself because I'm not 100% Native American. We're all migrants. We all came here at some point from somewhere else. So, and this could happen to any one of us. When I was in high school, the man I took American government from, we had to keep him on track because he was a Nisai. And you may not know that word, but that means first generation Japanese born in the United States. He was in the concentration camp at Clear Lake when he was a boy. It's like we all, if we look into our past, someone has had troubles somewhere that brought us here. This happens to be one of the current troubles at the moment. And it's not the only thing that we could have written on. There's so many different topics having to do with human rights that we could have chosen, but this is what we chose to do. And I hope to continue to expand the body of work, not only of female composers, but of this idea of, that music can truly bring things to the fore. That especially in its emotional appeal to us, that, music can bring us closer to knowing both our own lives and the lives of others, and the hopes and dreams of others that sometimes people die for as they try to find it. So thank you for your time, and I would entertain any questions that you have.